the ever-present condition in my life, lowering microphones. Wow, okay, this is an awesome room. Okay, could you get started, DJ? All right, so I want to tell a story about something I did in high school. A friend and I started a Twitter account when he lived in the Netherlands, I lived here in Chattanooga, and yeah, he and I were like, well, we should do something, and by virtue of being on opposite time zones, we'd have 24-hour coverage, right? So this was back in the early days of Twitter, when common phrases, 2007, 2008, common phrases that were heard. What can you say in 140 characters that's useful? Or, this is going to fail, or, like, I would never invest in that. You know, true things. So we started posting news. The first 3 months we were terrible. I was trying to figure out algebra, girls, and then that airplane crash in Ecuador. So these are things that I would be working on. I would go home and I would work on this. I was super young, and to give you a reference point of that, that's what I honestly, I really regret putting this slide up. 20 seconds is a really long time. I want to point that out. Cool, so after earthquakes, so we would work with the United States Geological Survey, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, a bunch of other federal agencies, and we would get real news. Somehow we took off and we started getting really, really good. I actually have no idea what happened, but somehow there was a point in which we became real journalists. This is a map of every single FBI office in the United States. I called every one of them in a week. And the goal was actually to establish a personal relationship with somebody in every single one of these offices. And that way, whenever something actually broke, I would know exactly who to call. We did this with federal agencies all over the United States. This is a great example. You can probably barely read that, but this is actually an earthquake that happened in North Korea. The United States Geological Survey made a phone call. They said, hey, this is not a normal earthquake. It's a 4.0, but it's in this very, very specific place. It was actually a nuclear explosion. They were testing something, and it caused an earthquake. That was the thing that we were able to break. Another one was Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer. He wrote a book based on some stuff that he did in the Special Forces. The Department of Defense decided that they wanted to redact it, and so their solution to that was to buy every single book and destroy it. We wrote the story, and the book sales went through the roof. They weren't too happy about that. But we were in competition with the Associated Press, the Agence France Presse, Reuters, and they had newsrooms all over the world with massive staffs, and we were beating them to a magnitude of about 35 minutes to an hour. In news, that is a really, really long time. It's an incredibly long time to beat it, and we were a bunch of kids from high school. One of the other stories that we were able to do was in 2006 there was a coup d'etat in Fiji. And later on in 2009 they revoked freedom of the press. We had some friends in that newsroom, and their editor-in-chief was arrested, and we knew about it 2 hours before it happened. We actually debated whether or not we were going to run the story at all, because it actually helped their case. So at some point, we started being actual journalists. Twitter said, hey, we really recognize what you're doing, and we really want to put you on the map, and so they added us to their suggested follower list. It was a static list. Unlike today, it's based off of your search history, but we went from 35,000 followers in after about 6 months of operation to 115 a week later. We covered some of the most important news stories of the late 2000s. This is a really famous image from the Hudson River plane crash. We knew about it before the plane even hit the water. The FAA called us and said, hey, those people are going to die. And so I wrote that report, and luckily that's not what happened. And so in 2009 sometime we released an actual iPhone app. And this was in the early days of iPhone, whenever apps weren't that great, so we experimented with push notifications. So every time a breaking news event would happen, we push an update to people's phones. It seems relatively simple to us now, but it was totally different than the way people were using apps back then. We were bringing people into the chaos with us, into the newsroom. We were named one of the 140 best Twitter feeds of 2011. They said if Walter Cronkite, Time Magazine said if Walter Cronkite were to come back as a Twitter feed, he'd come back as app breaking news. That's pretty awesome, right? I wish I had his voice. This would make this presentation way cooler. So we actually ended up basically applying the same methods of a private detective to news, and we did it in about 15 minutes per story, because that's about the average time I would have to write something. This is a press release about whenever Tiger Woods got in a car wreck. Is one of the pieces of paper I could find. Most of my hard drives went, but that's what they look like. So MSNBC came to us and said, hey, you guys are doing a really cool job, we want to buy your Twitter account. And so, as a 17-year-old, we were like, cool. We didn't know what exits were, we didn't know what lawyers were, or that we should involve them. We kind of got screwed. But I left in about 2010. Mostly because I was frustrated with answering phone calls at 4 in the morning about an airplane crash on the other side of the world. But more importantly, I was upset that my initial reaction to it was like, I hope a lot of people fucking die, otherwise I want nothing to do with this. You're getting a lot of honesty right now, guys. So, breaking news today, 6.5 million people follow them. Check your phones, you probably follow them. There's a good chance that you do. They're a huge part of MSNBC's digital brand. There's an awesome team of people running them out of Seattle. They're killing it. They really are crushing it. And there's this ever-present debate right now. And the reason I wanted to say this is because every single time a major news event breaks, people say, should Twitter really be a source of news? Should it be? That's a great question for us, right? They always get it wrong. But what I learned was that there is a difference between being right and being first. And there's actually a value to both. And actually, this is what I gave her putting 2 thank you slides. There's a thank you slide after this, so I get it. But I also realized that people who dedicate their lives to journalism in earnest are some of the most amazing people you've ever met. And breaking news is both a noun and a verb, and it's something I'm actually really happy to have done. Thank you guys so much.